In a city where power decides fate, a billionaire who once had everything suddenly comes face to face with the one woman he vowed never to forget, now homeless, broken, and hiding a secret that could shake the entire nation. What he did next, no one saw coming. If you're ready for a story full of shock, betrayal, and redemption, make sure you like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss a single chapter. Kelechi Obienwu built his empire on silence. In a city that worshipped wealth, he was a one billionaire who refused interviews, avoided parties, and kept his emotions sealed tighter than his company vaults. People saw the designer suits, the armored convoys, the skyscraper with his name glowing across the skyline, but none of them knew the man who lived inside all that steel and glass. At 34, he was the youngest tech mogul in West Africa, a man whose apps powered half the country. Still, behind the headlines lay a truth only his closest aide understood. Kelechi worked like he was running from something. Every morning he arrived at his headquarters before sunrise, drowning himself in numbers until he could no longer hear the echoes of the past he refused to speak about. His board believed he was motivated by ambition, but the truth was simpler. He had been broken once, shattered so deeply that the idea of love, vulnerability, or trust became a wound he never let heal. On this particular morning, he left his penthouse earlier than usual, heading for a routine PR visit at a government-funded community tech center. His team had arranged press coverage, but Kelechi hated cameras. "We'll enter quietly," he told his security. It was supposed to be a 10-minute appearance. Instead, his life took a turn he never saw coming. A protest broke out 2 streets ahead, blocking his convoy. His driver suggested turning back, but Kelechi, impatient and irritated, stepped out and decided to walk through an alley that connected to the next district. That alley led him directly toward a small public shelter he had never noticed before, a place filled with broken walls, peeling paint, and a sign that barely hung on its hinges. He didn't know why he paused. He didn't know why he stared at the entrance for so long. All he knew was that something in his chest tightened, something old, something familiar, something he thought he buried. And before his guards could stop him, the billionaire stepped into the shelter that would resurrect everything he tried to forget. The moment Kelechi entered the shelter, a heavy wave of damp air, disinfectant, and quiet suffering washed over him. It was a kind of place society pretended didn't exist. Mattresses lined the walls. Some people slept curled like frightened children, while others stared blankly at the ceiling. Their hope drained long before he arrived. His guards whispered behind him, urging him to leave, telling him the cameras could appear at any moment. But Kelechi raised a hand slightly, that subtle signal that meant silence. He kept walking deeper inside, though he couldn't explain why. It wasn't curiosity. It wasn't pity. It was something else tugging him forward, something that made his heart beat uneven for the first time in years. The shelter manager, a short, tired woman with a headscarf and kind eyes, rushed over. "Sir, this place is not for public viewing. If you want to donate, I'm just looking," Kelechi said, though even he didn't believe his own words. His gaze swept the room, past the sick mother rocking her coughing child, past the old man whose hands trembled violently, past the young boys huddled together for warmth. Then his eyes caught a figure in the far corner, someone curled tightly under a gray blanket, shivering as if the cold lived inside her bones. Something inside him lurched. A strange pressure settled in his chest. His feet began to move toward that corner even before he consciously decided. The guard followed carefully, exchanging confused glances. As he got closer, he noticed details that pierced him. Thin wrists, familiar posture, hair he could never mistake, even in 1,000 lifetimes. He froze. Completely. The world around him went silent, muffled, distant. The billionaire who never bowed to fear suddenly felt his knees weaken. Because under that blanket, in a homeless shelter he was never supposed to enter, lay the one person he never healed from. The one person he prayed to forget. The one person whose disappearance had turned him into stone. Adanna. Kelechi stood rooted to the floor as if the earth had swallowed his feet. For years he imagined Adanna in 100 different scenarios, thriving somewhere abroad, married to someone stable, building a business, living the beautiful life she once dreamed about. But never, not even in his darkest moments, had he imagined this. She was thinner, her once full cheeks hollowed by hunger, her radiant skin dulled by exhaustion, her hair unkempt as though she had stopped caring about mirrors long ago. She didn't even notice him yet. She was shaking, clutching the blanket like it was the last shield she had left in the world. Kelechi tried to speak, but nothing came out. Memories slammed into him, her laughter echoing through their university hostel, her fingers brushing his cheek the first time she told him she believed in him, the moment she disappeared without a single explanation. He swallowed hard. Adanna. The name escaped him in a whisper, soft but sharp enough to slice through the stillness. She flinched. Slowly, reluctantly, she lifted her head. Her eyes, once bright like morning sunlight, were now dim, heavy, guarded. When she saw him, she blinked as if her mind refused to accept the picture in front of her. "No," she breathed, shaking her head. "No, no, no." She turned away, trying to hide her face, her hands trembling uncontrollably. The billionaire who commanded boardrooms, who negotiated millions without blinking, suddenly felt helpless. "Adanna," he repeated, his voice steadier this time. "It's me." "Don't," she said quickly, her voice breaking. "Please don't look at me." Her shame was so raw it felt like a wound he could physically touch. But Kelechi couldn't look away. It felt like the universe had torn open a sealed door he never expected to see again. He crouched slowly, ignoring his expensive suit brushing the dusty floor. "What happened to you?" he whispered. She squeezed her eyes shut as if even the question hurt. Tears slipped down her cheeks, silent and uncontrollable. For a moment, they were no longer billionaire and homeless stranger. There were two people trapped in the sharp, painful shadow of everything they once were and everything they lost. Adanna pulled the blanket over her face, whispering, "Please, Kelechi, walk away. Pretend you didn't see me. I don't want your pity." But he couldn't move. His mind raced through 1,000 possibilities, none making sense. How could the brightest woman he ever knew, a woman who had scholarships, talent, purpose, end up in a shelter? He gently lowered the blanket from her face despite her resistance. Up close, the truth was even harsher. She had bruises on her arms. Her lips were cracked. She was exhausted in a way that went beyond lack of sleep. She looked like someone who had been fighting invisible battles for too long. "Talk to me," he said softly. "What happened?" "Life happened," she replied bitterly, "and I lost." She looked away, refusing to meet his eyes. "After I left, everything fell apart." "Why did you leave?" Kelechi's voice broke despite him trying to hide it. "You vanished. No explanation. No goodbye." Adanna swallowed hard. Something flickered across her face. Fear? Shame? Trauma? But she shut it down quickly. "It doesn't matter now. It matters to me." She laughed weakly, the sound cold and empty. "Of course it does. The man who feels nothing suddenly cares." He winced. That cut deeper than she knew. She finally sighed and whispered, "Debt, family problems, someone I trusted betrayed me, and then everything spiraled. I made terrible decisions. I ended up with the wrong people. And once you fall to the bottom," she gestured around, "this is where you land." Kelechi clenched his jaw. Something was off. This wasn't just bad luck. It sounded targeted. "Who did this to you?" She shook her head. "Leave it alone. Kelechi, nothing you do can fix me." But he refused to accept that, because in that moment, he realized something terrifying. He still loved her, and seeing her like this was a pain deeper than anything he had felt in years. Kelechi rose slowly, his heart pounding with anger, confusion, and a sense of responsibility he thought he buried with their past. He turned to the shelter manager. "How long has she been here?" The woman hesitated, glancing at Adanna. 2 months. She came with nothing but a torn backpack. She hardly speaks. She refuses most help." Kelechi's chest tightened. 2 months. While he sat in boardrooms and penthouses, she slept on cold floors. He crouched again. "Adanna, tell me who hurt you." "I'm not your problem anymore," she muttered. "Stop pretending." "I'm not pretending," he said, his voice low and intense. "Tell me the truth." She looked at him for a long moment, tired, defeated, yet still carrying that fire he once admired. "Fine," she whispered. "Since you want the truth," she leaned closer, her voice trembling. Someone close to you ruined my life. The words hit him like a punch. What? Your circle, she said. One of them destroyed everything. My business, my savings, my reputation. They sent threats. They made sure I disappeared. His blood ran cold. Why? Adanna's lips trembled. Because they didn't want me near you. The room spun. His guard stiffened. The shelter manager stayed in shock. Kelechi felt a rage he had not felt in years. Sharp, blinding, personal. Give me a name, he demanded. Adanna shook her head. Even now, you wouldn't believe me. Try me, he growled. She whispered the name. And when she did, Kelechi's entire world tilted, because it was the last person he ever expected. The most trusted person in his company. The betrayal was not just deep, it was surgical. And it was only the beginning. Kelechi walked out of the shelter with his fists clenched so tightly his knuckles turned white, his guard trailing behind him nervously because they had never seen him like this. The name Adanna whispered kept echoing in his skull, each repetition sharper than a blade. Dammy, his COO, his right hand, the man he trusted with every financial secret and every strategic decision, the man who claimed loyalty was his strongest quality. The betrayal felt surgical, intentional, premeditated, almost as if Dammy had been waiting for the perfect moment to strike. As soon as Kelechi entered his car, his voice dropped into that cold tone his team feared. Pull Adanna's records, bank statements, medical history, everything from the last 7 years. His head of security hesitated. Sir, that may require... Do it! Kelechi snapped, his patience gone. The investigation started immediately, and the deeper they dug, the darker it became. Adanna's small business loan had been mysteriously denied despite perfect eligibility. Her bank accounts had been flagged repeatedly for suspicious activity she didn't commit, resulting in freezes and penalties that drained her funds. A supposed anonymous client sabotaged her company website, causing legal trouble that forced her to shut down. Her rental apartment eviction was triggered by a forged complaint. Her phone number had been used to register fraudulent accounts she had no knowledge of. None of it made natural sense. It was too precise, too convenient, too connected. So, the lead investigator said carefully, every digital trail leads to a masked server. Origin? Kelechi asked. The same subnet your COO uses for confidential testing environments. The anger that exploded inside him was unlike anything he had felt since the day Adanna vanished. It wasn't just betrayal, it was war. But beneath the fury was something else, something deeper. Guilt. Because while she was falling apart, he was rising. While she was starving, he was prospering. He didn't cause her suffering. But he hadn't known she was suffering, and that was enough to make him feel responsible. Continue digging, he ordered. I want every message, every signature, every footprint. If Dammy did this, I will bury him with the truth. For the first time in years, the billionaire whose heart had been frozen felt it burning again, and the fire was only getting started. Night fell heavy over the city, but Kelechi couldn't rest. After hours of reviewing the investigation files, his mind kept drifting back to Adanna's trembling hands, her sunken eyes, the quiet shame in her voice when she told him not to pity her. He remembered the old Adanna, the woman who used to challenge him, laugh with him, dream with him, and the contrast was so painful he found himself pacing his penthouse like a caged animal. Finally, at 1:14 a.m., he grabbed his keys. His security rushed after him, asking where he was going, but he didn't answer. He drove alone, something he had not done in years. The streets were quieter than usual, the streetlights flickering weakly, casting broken shadows along the road. When he reached the shelter, the guard at the gate recognized him instantly and stepped back in surprise. Kelechi entered without a word. Most of the residents were asleep, but a few looked up at him with tired, confused eyes. The billionaire who didn't belong here. He moved quietly until he reached the same corner where Adanna slept. She was curled into herself, her breathing shallow, her body shivering under the thin blanket. He crouched next to her, watching the rise and fall of her chest, and his heart twisted. He didn't know whether it was guilt, grief, or something else entirely, but he knew one thing. He couldn't leave her here another night. He placed a warm flask of soup beside her, along with a small bag containing medicine, fruit, and fresh clothes. But when he shifted to stand up, her eyes flickered open. Fear flashed across her face. "Why are you here?" she whispered weakly. "Because you're not okay," he replied. She looked away, her jaw tightening. "I told you not to try to fix me." "I'm not trying to fix you," he said softly. "I'm trying to help you survive." Her breath trembled. For a moment, she looked like she wanted to cry again, but she held herself together. "I don't need saving, Kelechi. Everyone needs saving at some point." She swallowed, struggling with emotion she didn't want to show. He could see her fighting herself, fighting her pride, her pain, her memories. "Eat something," he urged. "Please." And for the first time in months, maybe years, Adanna allowed herself a moment of weakness. She reached for the flask with trembling fingers. As she ate slowly, silently, Kelechi sat beside her on the cold floor of the shelter, and without either of them saying it, a fragile bridge began to form between them again, a bridge built on broken pieces, but a bridge nonetheless. The next morning, the shelter buzzed with whispers before the sun even rose. Residents peeked from behind torn curtains and cracked doors, stunned to see a billionaire sitting cross-legged on the floor next to a homeless woman. It made no sense to them, to anyone, but Kelechi didn't care. He spent the early hours speaking quietly with Adanna, offering her real food, clean clothes, and a place to rest safely. She rejected every offer with stubborn pride. "I won't be your charity case," she said through clenched teeth. "You're not," Kelechi replied. "You're someone I care about." The words shook her, though she tried not to show it. "You cared about who I used to be," she whispered. "Not this." She gestured to her frail body, her worn clothes, her tired eyes. "I am not that Adanna anymore." "I don't care who you became," he said firmly. "I care that you're alive." She looked away quickly, blinking hard. "People will talk," she murmured. "People always talk," he said. "But they don't decide what I do." When she still refused, he sighed, stood up, and turned away, but then she swayed, her knees buckling beneath her. He caught her second before she hit the ground, lifting her effortlessly into his arms. The shelter staff gasped. Adanna protested weakly. "Put me down." I said no. "You need a doctor," he said. "I'm not asking anymore." Her resistance faded as her consciousness slipped. Without waiting for permission, Kelechi carried her out of the shelter. Cameras hadn't arrived yet. He moved quickly, placing her gently into his car. As she lay against the seat, shivering, her fingers curled unconsciously toward him, as if her body remembered a safety her mind refused to. Kelechi closed the door and whispered to himself, "Never again." And with that, he drove her away from the darkness swallowing her life. By sunrise, the entire city was buzzing. A blurry photo leaked online showing the billionaire carrying an unconscious woman into his car. Blogs exploded within minutes. Headlines spread like wildfire. "Mystery woman rescued by tech tycoon." "Billionaire seen leaving shelter with homeless lady." "Secret lover or secret scandal." The speculation was ruthless. His PR team called repeatedly, panicked and breathless. "Sir, we need a statement. The media is outside HQ. Investors are calling." Kelechi ignored all of them. He stayed by Adanna's side in his private penthouse, pacing back and forth as doctors treated her for dehydration, malnutrition, and exhaustion. His world, once clinical and controlled, now felt vulnerable, chaotic, because she lay on his guest bed looking like she was fighting for her life. A doctor pulled him aside. "She needs rest, stability, and food. But emotionally, she's been through severe trauma. She'll need support." Support. It was such a simple word for something he didn't know how to provide. Still, he nodded and thanked the doctor. Hours later, Adanna woke up, confused by the softness of the bed, the warmth of the blankets, the sunlight seeping through silk curtains. When she realized where she was, she panicked. "Why did you bring me here?" "People will think." "Let them think," he interrupted. "You're safe. That's all that matters." "Safe?" she whispered. "I haven't felt safe in years." Her voice cracked on the last word. She covered her face with her hands, trembling. And for a moment, Kelechi felt the crushing weight of everything she had endured, alone. Outside, the world speculated. Inside, two lives that once burned together now flickered in a fragile, silent reunion neither of them knew how to navigate. It took hours before Adanna found the strength to speak again. When she finally sat up, her eyes were hollow but clearer. "Why are you doing this?" she asked quietly. "Because you deserve a chance to breathe," Kelechi replied. "You disappeared on me. Adanna, you broke me. But I never wanted this for you." She looked away, guilt washing over her. "I didn't leave because I wanted to," she whispered. "Then why?" Kelechi asked, his voice tight. She swallowed hard, her hands trembling. "The night before I left, I received a message from an unknown number. It said if I didn't walk away from you, something terrible would happen. Not to me, to you." Kelechi felt a coldness spread through his body. What kind of threat? She closed her eyes, haunted. It said they would destroy your life, your company, everything you built, that you would blame me, that I would ruin you. He stepped back, stunned. "You believe that?" "I was 23, Kelechi," she whispered. "I was scared. You had enemies. I thought walking away would protect you." Silence filled the room, heavy and painful. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked. "Because the message said if I told you, they'd strike faster." Kelechi pinched the bridge of his nose, fury boiling under his skin. "Do you still have the message?" She nodded weakly. "I kept the SIM card. It's in my backpack at the shelter." His mind raced through every detail of their investigation. Threats, sabotage, manipulation. It all fit. Someone had orchestrated everything, and Adanna had been collateral damage. When she looked up at him again, tears streamed down her cheeks. "I didn't leave because I stopped loving you," she whispered. "I left because I thought it would save you." And just like that, the foundation of the past 7 years cracked open, revealing a truth that would change everything. By the time Kelechi and his team retrieved Adanna's old backpack from the shelter, he was ready for any truth, except the one they found. The SIM card she mentioned was cracked but still readable, and when his digital forensic department pulled the data, the entire room fell silent. The threatening messages weren't random. They weren't from strangers. They came from a masked server inside his own company's system, the same subnet used by his COO, Dammy. Every connection looped back to him, every digital fingerprint, every rerouted signal, every time ghost email. Dammy had orchestrated it all with precision. Kelechi felt the air leave his lungs as he stared at the recreated text messages. The first message to Adanna, 7 years ago: "Walk away from him or he loses everything. Tell no one." Then another set of messages years later, threatening her business, her accounts, her safety. One line stood out painfully: "He will never choose you over his empire." Kelechi slammed his hand against the table, fury shaking through him. "Why?" he growled. His head of investigations hesitated. "Sir, Dammy's been positioning himself for power for years. He thought Adanna made you weak. He believed removing her would give him control." Kelechi's jaw clenched so tightly he thought it might crack. The betrayal was so deep, so personal, it made his vision blur. Dammy wasn't just an employee. He had been a brother, a confidant, a man Kelechi trusted with his life. And he had destroyed Adanna's life in the shadows. When Kelechi returned to the penthouse, Adanna was asleep. He stood in the doorway watching her, his chest tight. For years he thought she abandoned him because she didn't love him. For years he hardened himself because he believed she chose a life without him. But standing there, watching her weak, exhausted, stolen from her own destiny by a man he trusted, something inside him cracked open. "I'm going to fix this," he whispered to the quiet room. "I'm going to fix everything." It was no longer about anger. It was about justice. The next morning, chaos greeted Kelechi like a storm waiting at his door. His PR director barged into the penthouse, breathless, phone vibrating nonstop. "Sir, it's out of control," she said. "There's a viral rumor that you've been hiding a homeless mistress. The government wants a meeting. Investors are threatening to pull out. Protesters are gathering outside the headquarters." Kelechi blinked, stunned by the speed of the wildfire. All this from one photo. Not just a photo, she said. Your enemies are pushing the story. Hard. A news anchor's voice boomed from the TV. Reports indicate billionaire Kelechi Obienwu was seen rescuing a homeless woman from a shelter. Sources claim she may have ties to a brewing corruption scandal within his company. What scandal? He muttered. But the PR director was already handing him another tablet. A fabricated audit leak. False accusations of embezzlement. Someone planted evidence blaming Adanna. His blood went cold. This wasn't a coincidence. It was an attack. A strategic one. Designed to cripple him. Designed to discredit her. Designed to force him into a corner. Dammy, he whispered. This had Dammy's signature written all over it. And the city was eating it up. Crowds gathered with signs. No more corruption. Billionaire hides homeless lover. We need the truth. The police placed barriers in front of his company buildings. Investors demanded emergency meetings. Sponsors paused partnerships. Everything he built over a decade was shaking violently under the weight of a lie. Adanna emerged from the hallway, startled by the noise on the TV. Kelechi, what's happening? His eyes softened when he looked at her. Nothing you need to worry about. They are blaming me, she whispered. They always blame me. He stepped closer. This isn't your fault, and I won't let the world destroy you again. But even he knew the war had begun, and the city's eyes were on them. 4 days, Adanna stayed inside the penthouse while the world outside burned with speculation. Kelechi shielded her from cameras, reporters, and online mobs, but he couldn't shield her from herself. She struggled, physically and emotionally. She flinched at loud noises, panicked at the thought of leaving the room, apologized for things that weren't her fault. Kelechi watched her silently, his heart twisting with every sign of trauma. Slowly, gently, he began creating routine for her. Breakfast at 9, medication reminders, soft music that she used to love, blankets placed near her whenever she felt cold. And for the first time, he allowed himself to feel. One evening, he found her sitting on the balcony, staring at the city lights. I used to look at the skyline and imagine you somewhere at the top, she said softly. I thought at least one of us made it. We were supposed to make it together, he replied quietly. She shook her head. I ruined everything. No, he said firmly. Someone ruined you to get to me. She looked at him then, really looked at him. 4 years she carried guilt, shame, and heartbreak alone. Now she saw regret in his eyes, responsibility, affection he never got to show. Kelechi, she whispered, but her voice broke. He sat beside her, close enough to feel her trembling. I didn't stop loving you, he said, the word surprising even him. She inhaled sharply, tears filling her eyes. I thought I wasn't enough for your world. He shook his head. My world was empty without you. In that moment, something fragile and beautiful began to return. Not the wild passion they once had, but a quiet warmth, a rebuilding. They talked until midnight, not as broken lovers, but as two people learning how to breathe again. And in the silence that followed, their hearts finally recognized each other after years of being strangers. Kelechi knew confronting Dammy head-on would be dangerous. Dammy was cunning, calculating, and desperate for power. To defeat someone like that, Kelechi needed strategy, not anger. So he did what billionaires do best. He staged a chessboard of deception. First, he announced to the company board that he planned to take an indefinite leave due to personal matters, pretending to crumble under the pressure of the scandal. Investors panicked. The media erupted again. And Dammy, just as Kelechi predicted, stepped forward, offering to temporarily assume full control of the company. Kelechi watched silently from the shadows as Dammy played the hero. Meanwhile, Kelechi's private investigators traced every illegal transaction, every threatening message, every forged document back to Dammy. The evidence was damning, but he needed a public confession. So he created a bait too irresistible for Dammy to ignore. He leaked a rumor that Adanna possessed a secret file that could clear Kelechi's name. The story spread like wildfire. Dammy took the bait instantly. Late one night, security cameras caught him sneaking into the restricted floors of the headquarters, trying to find the fake file. Hidden microphones captured everything. Dammy cursing, panicking, admitting his crimes in whispers. If that girl talks, everything is finished. Dammy muttered into his phone. I should have gotten rid of her properly the first time. The words made Kellich's blood run cold as he listened from a surveillance room. Adanna, sitting beside him, covered her mouth, tears streaming down her cheeks. He would have killed me, she whispered. Kellichi held her trembling hand. Not anymore. The final trap was set, and by morning, the entire city would witness the downfall of the man who destroyed their lives. The press conference was aired live on every major channel. Journalists filled the hall, cameras pointed, microphones buzzing. The city expected explanations, apologies, maybe even a resignation. What they didn't expect was the truth. Kellichi walked onto the stage with calm authority, Adanna seated anonymously among trusted staff behind him. Dammy stood at the side, pretending confidence, believing he was about to be praised for stabilizing the company. But then the screens lit up. First came the threatening messages from 7 years ago, then the fraudulent financial sabotage, then the digital trails, every one of them pointing directly to Dammy. Gasps erupted across the hall. Journalists sprang to their feet. Dammy's face drained of color. This is fake, he shouted. It's all fabricated. Kellicher stared at him with icy composure. Play the final recording. The speakers boomed with Dammy's own voice, the one from the night he searched for the fake file. If that girl talks, everything is finished. I should have gotten rid of her properly the first time. The room exploded with outrage. Reporters shouted questions. Security moved toward Dammy. The world watched a powerful man crumble in real time. And then Kellicher said a line that shook the entire nation. The woman he destroyed is alive, and she will never be silenced again. All heads turned as Adanna slowly stood up, her expression steady, stronger than she had looked in years. Flashbulbs went off like lightning. Her story, her survival, her silence breaking. It was a moment the city didn't expect, the moment that would rewrite everything. And in the center of it all, Kellichi realized something profound. This wasn't just justice. It was redemption, for both of them. The clip of Adanna standing in the press conference became the most shared video in the country within hours. People didn't expect the fragile woman from the leaked shelter photo to rise with such silent strength. They didn't expect the billionaire's mysterious homeless lover to be a survivor of corporate sabotage. Overnight, public opinion swung dramatically. Sympathy replaced judgment, and outrage replaced gossip. Interviews flooded the news. Psychologists discussing trauma recovery, activists exposing homelessness statistics, journalists praising Adanna's courage. But the most powerful shift came when Kellichi introduced her formally as the new director of the Obianwu Foundation, a position he had been planning quietly, waiting only for her consent. Standing beside him, dressed simply but elegantly, Adanna addressed the nation for the first time. Her voice trembled at the beginning, but as she spoke, it steadied. She talked about her fall from grace, about sleeping in parks, about losing everything, about how shame kept her silent. She described the fear of being forgotten and the pain of being invisible. And then she said a line that shook viewers everywhere. Homelessness does not start with losing a home. It starts with losing hope. And hope is something we must give back to people. Her words pierced through millions of hearts. Many cried, many donated, many volunteered. The shelter she once slept in received more support in 24 hours than in the last 10 years combined. Meanwhile, Kellichi watched her from a few steps away, his chest swelling with pride. This wasn't the broken woman he found under a blanket. This was the Adanna he fell in love with, the fighter, the leader, the voice of the forgotten. And as applause thundered through the room and Adanna met his eyes for a brief, electrifying moment, he realized something. Her comeback wasn't just inspiring. It was historic. Fame didn't change Adanna. If anything, it humbled her. Reporters camped outside the penthouse. Influencers begged for interviews. Brands offered ambassador deals. But she refused anything that didn't align with her purpose. Meanwhile, Kellichi watched her rediscover pieces of herself, her laughter returning softly, her appetite improving, her steps becoming steadier. At night, they shared quiet conversations on the balcony, talking about the past they lost and the future they weren't sure how to rebuild. One evening, while the city lights blinked beneath them, she asked softly, "Did you ever hate me?" He shook his head. "I tried to. But love doesn't disappear just because you're angry. She turned to him slowly, her eyes full of emotion she had buried for years. I always thought you moved on. I never did, he admitted. You were the only person who saw me before the money. A tear slipped down her cheek. And you were the only person who believed I could become more. They stood close enough for their hand to touch, but neither reached first. The tension between them was fragile, heavy with memories and wounds. Kelechi, she whispered, do you think we can ever go back? He exhaled deeply. I don't want to go back. She looked startled. You don't? No, he said gently. I want something better than what we had. Something honest. Something safe. Something that won't be destroyed by fear. She looked at him for a long time, then nodded slowly. I want that too. Their fingers finally intertwined, trembling slightly, as if both of them were learning how to touch again. And in that quiet moment, no cameras, no applause, no pressure, love returned not with fireworks, but with a whisper. The board of Obianwu Technologies was furious. Kelechi's public exposure of Dami had protected the brand's morality, but investors resented the instability. They demanded stronger leadership, stricter control, and immediate restructuring. But Kelechi had already made his decision, a decision that shocked them all. He walked into the boardroom, calm and certain, and slid a stack of documents across the table. I'm selling 28% of my controlling shares. Gasps erupted. Are you insane? One board member shouted. Do you know what this means? Another snapped. Kelechi nodded. It means freedom. The truth was simple. As long as he held absolute power, anyone could target the people he loved to get to him. Dami had proved that painfully. By stepping back, he made himself less of a target, and Adanna safer. But beyond strategy, this was about something deeper. For years, he clung to his company like it was oxygen, believing success would heal the emptiness Adanna left behind. But now she was back, and he realized something shocking. He no longer needed an empire to feel alive. When Adanna learned about his decision, she panicked. You sold your company because of me. No, he said softly. I sold it for us, for the life I want to build, a life where work doesn't own me. Tears filled her eyes. But your company is everything. He smiled gently. You gave me something the company never could, peace. She stepped toward him, her emotions overflowing. I don't deserve this, she whispered. You deserve more than what life has given you, he replied. And for the first time since he became a billionaire, Kelechi felt free, not because he gained something, but because he let something go. Adanna's story transformed the entire city. It wasn't just trending, it was changing policies. Government officials visited shelters. Schools invited her to speak. Donations skyrocketed. Volunteers doubled. People began treating the homeless with compassion rather than judgment. Her influence spread far beyond what she imagined. Meanwhile, the Obianwu Foundation expanded rapidly under her leadership. She created programs for skill training, medical support, trauma counseling, and financial guidance for people recovering from homelessness. Kelechi often attended her sessions quietly, sitting in the back, watching her shine. He saw how survivors gravitated toward her, how her presence made them feel seen. He saw how she carried their stories with reverence, always listening, always validating. And the world noticed. Newspapers called her the miracle of the streets. Documentaries featured her journey. People around the world sent messages of gratitude. But despite the growing fame, she remained grounded. One evening, while reviewing proposals, she found Kelechi watching her with a small smile. What? She asked shyly. Nothing, he said. I'm just proud of you. She blushed, shaking her head. I'm trying. You're doing more than trying. She hesitated, then whispered, Do you ever regret everything that happened? He shook his head. The pain made us who we are, and who we are now is stronger. She exhaled softly, her shoulders relaxing. For the first time, she believed it. Together, they were healing not just each other, but the city. Kelechi drove Adanna to the old shelter without telling her why. The sun was setting, casting warm gold across the street as she stepped out of the car, confused. But the moment she saw the building, she froze. The shelter had been completely rebuilt. Fresh paint, new beds, a medical wing, classrooms, a kitchen, gardens. A large sign stood above the entrance, Adanna Hope Center. Her breath caught. "Kelechi, what is this?" "Your legacy," he said. "Your second chance. And the beginning of many more." Tears streamed down her cheeks uncontrollably. She turned to him, shaking. "Why would you do this?" "Because this place didn't break you," he said softly. "It revealed you." She covered her mouth, overwhelmed. And then he stepped closer, his voice trembling slightly. "Adanna, I lost you once. I won't lose you again." She gasped as he knelt, pulling out a simple silver ring that glimmered softly in the sunset. "Not for the cameras. Not for the world. Just for us," he said. "Will you let me walk beside you this time, without fear, without secret, without running?" Her hands flew to her face as she sobbed. "Yes," she whispered. 1,000 times yes." He slipped the ring on her finger. They embraced under the warm evening sky, two broken souls rebuilt, two stories rewritten. And though there were no reporters around, the city learned of their engagement hours later. Social media exploded. News stations celebrated. People cheered in the streets. And the nation agreed on one thing. The billionaire's reaction didn't just shake the city, it healed it.